I remember sitting one evening with tears in my eyes, and I asked God, why do I always get this close and it just slips away? All my life I felt gifted, wise, favored, yet jobs, exams, businesses, even relationships would collapse just when I was about to break through. That's what they call a near success syndrome. But when I started seeing it echo in my children, like they're about to go to school and then one falls sick, that started breaking me. Because I could see the same patterns that I experienced repeat themselves in my children. Until one day in prayer, God whispered, deliverance is not enough. You must learn preservation. That was a turning point for me because yes, breakthrough is a miracle, but I realized that preservation is a mission after birth. Here's what I discovered. When God hands you victory, the enemy doesn't retreat. He waits for a crack, especially in your moment of celebration or complacency. Just like it is written, while men slept, the enemy came and sowed tares. Because honestly, complacency is a thief. And to imagine, I almost lost it again until God took me through an experience where I learned step by step how to preserve my breakthroughs. Let me take you through this 7-step framework to preserve your breakthrough. 1, stay in the secret place. Now, how do we stay in the secret place? The prayer, fasting, and obedience that birthed your breakthrough are the same disciplines that will preserve it. Don't drop what carried you here. 2, be vigilant and discern the shift. Pay attention to the patterns that are trying to return. When I started sensing old cycles returning back, I had to learn how to pray immediately. So you need not to ignore the signs. 3, guard your boundaries in celebration. Breakthrough seasons attract noise. Be careful what you share and when. You need to learn how to protect what God is establishing. 4, keep the altar alive. Now, this is obedience to the daily instructions that you receive or the pattern that was laid out for you. The altar is not just about one big sacrifice. It's about the daily practices that keep the fire burning on that altar. And here's the truth. How you keep your altar fire burning is only unique to you. God will give you instructions that are specific to your life, your calling, and your assignment. For some, he says, preach the word. For others, he says, write the books I have put in your spirit. And for another, wake up at midnight, wake up at 3 to 6. That is for an intercessor, for most of the visionaries. These are not random instructions. They are a pattern that God sets for you to maintain the fire burning on your altar. Now, your responsibility is to listen carefully and follow consistently. Preservation, because preservation is not a formula, it is obedience. Obeying the instructions of what you're hearing, what you are asked to do, what God has told you. That unique pattern, that mode of operation is how your fire keeps burning and how your deliverance is preserved. Now, let me give you an example of David's story in 1 Chronicles 21. It is a good read. You may not understand the instructions that God gives you, but Satan provoked David to take a census that exposed his misplaced confidence and trust in God. In that particular moment of weakness, act led to God's judgment. But amidst of all that, God gave David an instruction through a prophet to go to Mount Moriah and build an altar unto the Lord, to correct what he had done wrong and the judgment that he had brought upon Israel in that particular moment. Yet when he obeyed and offered sacrifices on that land, first of all, Onan wanted to give it to him for free. He said, this has to cost me, only for God to reveal a greater purpose. God told David, this is the place that I have sanctified. This is where my temple will be built. What began as David's weaknesses became a doorway to God's divine plan. And that is how God works. What the enemy means for evil, God will always turn around for our good. Sometimes you don't see the why behind an instruction until later. But the courage to obey even in uncertainty is how you discover your human blueprint and preserve your breakthrough. Because only you know the steps that God gave you, and only obedience to those steps will keep the fire burning on your altar. Now let's go to step 5. Write, rehearse, and teach every revelation that you receive, every instruction you receive. Journal it, and then confirm what you have heard. God will always confirm. Teach it in your home if you're a mentor. mentor others. That is how you build your hedge. Now, step 6, surround yourself with watchers. Not everyone who claps for you can cover you. Find your tribe. Could be intercessors, could be mentors who can see what you can't see, especially when you're tired. Now, 7, walk in gratitude and humility. Pride after breakthrough is very dangerous, and it can happen to anybody. You may not realize that you're actually being proud, but gratitude will keep you grounded because it keeps your heart open and it keeps you receiving. That's a 7-step framework that could actually help you to preserve your breakthrough. Let me give you a short story of my experience. We received an instruction to move to a certain location, which we found honestly too costly and impossible. And I got to a point and questioned myself, did I really hear well? But obedience isn't always convenient. But that move actually preserved the ground that God gave us, a territory that we had lost to the kingdom of darkness. It became my altar and my place of mercy. Had I not been obedient when I had the instruction, had I doubted, had I stayed back, you know how Peter stayed in the boat, wasn't sure whether he should step out of the boat, and when Jesus said, "Come, walk on the water," that is what we call stepping out of the boat. You can actually receive the instructions, but you have a little bit of doubt. But remember, it's not by might, not by power, but by the Spirit, says the Lord. Sometimes you need to trust God, even when you do not see a light at the end of the tunnel. You may not really know what is written in that particular moment or where you're headed, but sometimes you need to have the courage to step out of the boat and walk on the water, because deliverance is a moment, but preservation is a lifestyle. Don't let complacency rob you of what God entrusted to you. Start today. Guard what He gave you. Stay in that secret place. And if you're ready to not only win a breakthrough, but build a life, a family, a business that cannot be shaken, I would love to walk with through my mentorship programs that will teach you how to preserve and guard what has been entrusted to you. Together, we won't just celebrate miracles. We will learn to preserve them. Stay blessed. Jacinta is my name. Bye-bye.